Okay, so hello and welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining me and joining this group for this introduction to working with essential oils. And it really is about natural health and well-being, and it's quite an amazing subject. And there are so many ways in which essential oils can support us as an aspect and an element of nature. So with this as well, I actually want to take a bit of an unconventional look at essential oils in the beginning, because the way that I actually connect with and see essential oils is that they are very, very powerful bridges for us um, between the natural world, well, I say the natural world because we are nature, but they are bridges into the plant kingdom, if you like. They have such incredible gifts that they actually bring to us. Thanks for that message, Michelle. I'll keep my eye on the chat room. So any questions, any comments, then please put them in. So let's just launch into this. The term essential oil is actually derived from quintessential oil, which is where I get this essence from, which in turn comes from Aristotle's notion that while fire, air, earth, and water make up natural materials, it's the fifth element, in other words, the quintessence, that gives a certain material its life force. And I loved that description because to me, that's what they are. Essential oils are the quintessence, the essence, the ether wrapped into those beautiful or encoded into those beautiful aromatic molecules that we can enjoy that are gifted to us from the plant kingdom. So that's the first thing, that is the actual quintessence of the plant itself. It's the life force of the plant that is shared with us through the extracted essential oils. So, of course, now we know that essential oils, which are sourced from plants, flowers, and seeds, are in fact made up of a combination of chemicals. Those are, we call them aromatics, which is why they're so fragrant, and that these can be isolated via distillation or a mechanical process, some form of extraction. Thanks to their volatile compounds, essential oils are fragrant, therefore used in aromatherapy, because the whole word aroma speaks to the concept of fragrance and our sense of smell. Um, so we can think of them and relate to them as plant medicine. You know, you hear the words plant medicine, and we sort of automatically, I don't know about you guys, but generally tend to relate immediately to plant medicine as, you know, sort of ayahuasca or one of those things. But essential oils are as vital as an element and aspect of plant medicine as any of those things. And they can, in fact, support you with a very natural high rather than being out of it. Aromatherapy itself understands that our sense of smell is deeply connected to the overall health and wellness of our entire being. It is also an incredible sense that has a very, very powerful link in with our memory storage. You know, and you guys would know how just a single whiff or a single smell or a fragrance that you love can transport you back to the time when you first experienced it, and to times that are both hold memories of beautiful happiness and also sadness. So those smells, in fact, it was quite interesting because just as a matter of course, I love peppering in with stories. Talking about fragrances, I was actually at a secondhand um, sale. It wasn't quite a car boot sale, it was an indoor thing. It was quite an upmarket one a couple of weeks ago. And I had some vintage bottles of 4711 on the table that I was selling. And one woman came in, and that was it. She had to have that bottle of 4711 because it was the vintage one. And her words were when she picked it up, "I'm taking my nan home." Because the smell, the minute she opened the bottle, reminded her of her grand. She was almost in tears. So that's how powerful our sense of smell is, and also an incredible relationship that it actually has in respect of our overall well-being. So essential oils are far more than aromatic compounds. They are very powerful concentrated plant extracts that have innumerable healing qualities and benefits. So, of course, this is an introductory presentation. We're really going to scratch the surface of the incredible nature and benefits of essential oils, but I think you'll get an idea of just how powerful it is. And they are, I should say. Essential oils and aromatherapy, we could actually refer to as both an art and a science, because it is very scientific in terms of identifying the chemical compounds that actually have specific attributes within the oils, to the point where they're now able to manufacture synthetic equivalents of some of those compounds, which is where we get adulterated oils on the market. But there is also an art to aromatherapy in respect of blending certain oils together for very specific purposes, both topically as well as fragrantly. So it's a very powerful art and a science in respect of understanding it. And it's multi-layered as well. It has its roots in very, very ancient practices of using plants for healing, which is thousands of years old wisdom. It is truly holistic, because the one thing about essential oils is that it impacts all levels of our being. We tend to very often think about them physically, but they also can impact very strongly mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So they have multiple layers and modes of action. They have been used for fragrancing in both perfumes and in health for all of that time that it's been known about. Egyptians themselves used plant extracts to embalm their dead. And by the third century BC, so this is, sort of over 2000 years ago, there is evidence that a primitive distillation method had been established, which is a method of concentrating a specific essential oil. There were very few, obviously, that were extracted at that time and that were known about, and it's grown since then. But that's over 2000 years ago that they established a method of being able to distill and concentrate the extract. The Indian Rig Vedas, around about 2000 BC, actually contains references to and a reverence for, this is also really beautiful, this reverence for the healing and medicinal attributes of plants. Similarly, found in ancient formulations in Chinese herbal medicine, also this amazing honoring and reverence for what these elements and aspects of the plant kingdom were able to provide us. And just by way of information, this is not in the notes, there are something like 3,000 known or potential plants that could yield essential oils. Of those, there's only about 300 that are actually used medicinally and used for human and animal purposes. So it's about 300 total essential oils that have been studied extensively. And there's a lot of modern studies in terms of medical proper controlled studies that are validating and verifying the impacts of various essential oils. So it's not just anecdotal. There is some powerful science that is now actually backing it up. So just having a look at this, because I actually see essential oils as being concentrated packets of information as light that we are gifted from the plant kingdom. So those of you who attended the first Power of Light class will actually recognize this particular slide with the information and about the nature of light. That light exists both as waves, electromagnetically, as well as particles, which are known as photons. So they're either or and both. They are also, light is also quantum in nature, in that it actually exists and manifests through entangled states, so-called squeezed states. They are quantum teleporters. So a discrete item completely disintegrates in one location and a perfect replica appears intact in another. And that's something that actually has been done with photons or units or particles of light. The advances in quantum understanding have opened the way for a multitude of potential applications, both positive as in healing, and nefarious, as in behavioral control, utilizing light and electromagnetic waves. But one of the most significant aspects and things to remember is that light is information. So we talk about increased frequencies of light coming onto the planet, and that is actually true, and different qualities and different aspects and attributes to that light, whether it's actually seen or unseen, that's actually coming in, and it's all information. And if we think about the plant kingdom, what the plant kingdom does through its very biology and the way that it is structured is it takes that light information and it translates that into chemicals, as in carbohydrates, and ultimately into the volatile compounds that make up essential oils. So just to really think about that, because everything that a plant does is done within the medium of water, and it is actually done through the transfer of information through light. Without light, we wouldn't have plants. Without water, we wouldn't have plants. So light is information, which gives information to the plant. It is then actually stored, converted, utilized, etc., through its mechanisms, and we get the benefit of that transformed information through essential oils. So sound and light, you've heard me say before, are the same thing at different octaves of expression. And water itself, as we know, is both an information carrier, so it holds memory. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Most people, I think, on this call would be very familiar with that idea. Water holds information and it transmits information. And within our bodies, there is such a thing as quantum tunneling, where water actually transmits light and information from one part of the body to another instantaneously. So the water in the plants and the water in our bodies is actually encoded by the light that the plants take in. And where I get to, and where I actually want to take this, is that if the essential oils and those beautiful compounds that are generated and created by the plant world are typically used on our bodies, they are essentially transmitting information into the water in our bodies, so that our bodies can then transfer that to wherever it is needed in our body for health and for well-being. So it's a bit of an unconventional look, but it really marries together all of these concepts and ideas and understandings of the relationship that we have with light and water. So your body naturally produces light in the form of biophotons. That has been scientifically established. The light carries information for metabolic and cellular functioning. This has been established through Russian research, with coherent light transfer from your DNA that can instruct change in the recipient organism. Light is produced by your bones, your DNA, your mitochondria, your cells, your collagen, etc. Most of the light that is produced by living organisms cannot be seen with the naked eye, but it does become visible with the use of that's a typo, multipliers, and that was work done by Fritz Popp. So you automatically emit light from the cells. The amount of light that you produce is dependent on optimum biological functioning, number one, and number two, receiving full spectrum light. So the receiving of light through the eyes has a huge impact on the well-being of your body. There are other elements to this too, but also the optimum biological functioning of your body. The essential oils then provide us with an additional mechanism of being able to transmit valuable information for optimum biological functioning through the skin and through the other organs. So it's a multifaceted approach. To fully perhaps appreciate this is we look and we often think about nature as being something separate to ourselves that we have a relationship with. Our connection with nature is as a continuum. So we are vital components and aspects of a continuum or a flow that runs throughout the entire natural world. Plants and animals arose in tandem approximately 500 million years ago. The jury is still out as well as to what came first. It would appear that the plant kingdom and the blue-green algae were probably the first complex life forms, green pigmented, because they had the green pigment which enables them to photosynthesize and produce oxygen, um, which we would have needed to breathe. But they still don't know what the first plants were that actually evolved. Light, I've just said, is the key to all of life and the source of every complex molecule produced within the plants as well as within our own bodies. Everything is literally slowed down light frequencies and electrical currents. We are in a living symbiotic relationship with the plant and animal kingdoms, as our own unique expression of nature itself. All has or is consciousness as an emanation from source. So the essential oils I like to think of as well as a gift from source that is actually transformed, generated, created through plant world itself. We can therefore think of essential oils as liquid drops of concentrated light that help facilitate the restoration of our optimum electrical currents for life, health, and well-being through the frequencies that they impart. It's now known as well that within our body, that each of the molecules, each of the hormones, each of the enzymes actually has its own frequency. Therefore, there are different ways that we respond in different parts of our bodies to different essential oils as well, because they all bring different frequencies into play. So I hope that makes sense to you. This is just, some of you will recognize this slide too. Our relationship with nature is completely modulated by light, I should add, and water. But then water is crystallized light. But our entire relationship is the plants actually absorb all of the frequencies and wavelengths from the sun. Everything comes from the sun. Great that they're looking at dimming the sun in the UK. But the plants actually absorb all of those frequencies, and they emit not only green light, which is what we see, but they also emit near infrared light, which we need in order to counterbalance the overabundance of blue light. So that's a really interesting one, because this very fact that within forests and areas of dense greenery that we can absorb near infrared light from the plant kingdom itself lends credence to and validity to this practice. I believe it arose in Japan, which is gaining popularity, of forest bathing. So you can forest bathe and absorb infrared light from the plants, which is also incredibly valuable for the functioning of your mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of your cells. I'm not going to go into the detail here, but they need red and near infrared light in adequate concentrations to function properly. So if you find yourself lacking in energy, that's one of the reasons why being out in nature is such a valuable practice. Take a walk in the park, literally go and hug a tree. So I just wanted to share this one with you, just so that you can see it's again part of our connection with nature, and that continuum is that the lifeblood of plants is technically the chlorophyll, because without the chlorophyll and the ability to photosynthesize, the plant would not exist. So it's essentially the lifeblood of the plants. Our lifeblood, we know as human blood, which is the hemoglobin. These are nearly identical, bioidentical molecules, the optimum activity of which is determined by light. And with the right light, your blood cells are able to create stem cells for the areas in your body that need repair. The biggest difference here is that the core element in chlorophyll is magnesium, and the core element in human blood is iron, or in hemoglobin. But other than that, there are very few differences in terms of the biological structure. There are one or two, but almost bioidentical molecules. It's really quite fascinating, other than the core metal functioning. This, I know the golden diamonds, and some in my community have heard me say this many times. The indigenous peoples had an understanding and a concept of our connection as part of the continuum of nature through some of the language and some of the practices that they have. Their inherent understanding in Africa is that trees are referred to as standing people, and people are referred to as walking trees. So there is this like really deep ancient understanding that we are inextricably linked with the natural world. Um, and yeah, this relationship with trees is really quite fascinating. So we are not separate from nature, we are nature, which brings us back also to that beautiful quote, which is, we are not defending or fighting for nature, we are nature itself defending itself. When we look at cleaning up our environments, when we look at anything that we do, it is nature defending itself. So working with essential oils and the pure quintessence of the plants is in essence a facet or an aspect of nature defending itself, because we are defending ourselves against all of the toxicities that we are actually subject to on an ongoing and on a daily basis. So I hope that makes sense for you. I've got the chat room up, so if there are any questions at all, um, then just please put them in the chat room. I'm keeping my eye on that. So, essential oils share the light information from plants with the water in your body, and nothing takes place biologically unless it is through the medium of water. So, the quality of internal light that you produce is modulated through the medium of water, and that information which is transmitted, helping to reharmonize and re-energize your body, and that ultimately is healing. So it's an interplay, a beautiful, beautiful interplay and transfer of energy in many ways. And that is how I see and relate to essential oils. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts. Sources of essential oils, you have flowers, seeds, you would know sort of flowers, rose oil, neroli, which is orange blossom, for instance. Seeds, a multitude of seeds. You've got things like black pepper, which is a seed oil, cumin seed oil, and so there's lots and lots. Chamomile, I think, is from the seeds of the specific plant. But you have flowers, seeds, leaves, wood, and resins. And the aromatic products that are produced by the plant itself are produced for various purposes and various reasons. Resins, for instance, which is what frankincense, as an example, is drawn from. That is a resin, frankincense essential oil. Is that particular resin is produced in response to damage to the bark of the tree. So the tree produces resin to be able to heal itself as well as to protect the rest of the tree. Um, you also have, for instance, in the orange family, which is really quite interesting, you've got three different essential oils that are produced by different parts of the tree. So from the orange tree, the bitter orange tree, the flowers are actually used to produce neroli. The leaves of the bitter orange tree are used to produce an oil known as petitgrain. So they have similar olfactory properties, but there are obvious differences in terms of the chemicals in there. And the wood of the bitter orange tree, so it was the flowers, the leaves, and the wood is the third one. Sorry, it's just actually flipped my mind. It's just gone. But certainly you've got petitgrain, you've got neroli. Oh no, it's not the wood, it's the rind of the orange itself produces the bitter orange essential oil. So there you have like three components of the plant actually having different essential oil constituents for different purposes and different reasons, but beautifully aromatic. So the plants themselves would actually produce them to be able to attract insects for pollination. They would also produce essential oils to repel insects, or those that actually may be harmful to the plant. They protection, as in the resins, so they would actually protect the bark of the tree. They can also produce aromatic products as a means of communicating with each other. There are various trees in Africa that actually produce pheromones and other materials in response to an animal eating the leaves. So it actually warns the other trees, which then produce a bitter aromatic, which stops the animals from them feeding on too many trees in the same area at any one time. So it's quite marvelous, actually, what they do. So multiple reasons why plants actually produce these particular chemicals and particular products. Everything has a function and everything has a purpose. So essential oils have numerous benefits, and this really is just scratching the surface. There are also a multitude of terms in the aromatherapy world or associated with essential oils, which can be a bit confusing. This is by no means a full coverage because there is like 6 or 7 pages of glossary of some more of the unusual terms, but essential oils are and can be analgesic, so they are pain relieving, anti-allergenic, which help against allergies, anti-catarrhal, so it actually slows down and gets rid of mucus. Antidepressant speaks for itself, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and those would be antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. Most essential oils actually do have an antibacterial element. Some are stronger than others. Some are both antibacterial and antifungal. Some have a weaker antifungal function. So there are different levels of antibacterial activity, but all possess them to some degree. Antipyretic, which relieves or prevents itching, so skin soothing. Antiseptic, which prevents infection by killing or slowing down the growth of microorganisms. It's also antimicrobial. Antispasmodic, which means sort of prevents or slows down or inhibits spasming, and that could be muscular, it could be the nervous system, it could be the digestive system, it could be one of a number of things. But that's the antispasmodic. Aphrodisiac, I think you guys would know that one. Astringent, that means it causes the shrinkage or contraction of body tissues. It's normally used applied to the skin or associated with the skin. Antitussive, a cough suppressant. Balancing, creating emotional balance. Calming, speaks for itself. Carminative, prevents and or relieves flatulence. So there are oils for that too. Cholagogue helps with the discharge of bile from the gallbladder. Cicatrisant heals wounds by the formation of scar tissue, so it actually supports wound healing. Cooling, cytophylactic, which stimulates generation of new cells. Deodorant, depurative, which cleanses or removes impurities from the blood. So there's a host of terms. So it just gives you some idea at the top level of the multitude of benefits that essential oils can actually bring to us as living aspects of the continuum of nature, which is just really beautiful. As a general rule as well, so the difference between essential oils and carrier oils, the essential oils are the natural extracts from plants which are highly concentrated aromatic compounds. They therefore need to be, and this is a general guideline as well, if you are going to use essential oils, dilute them before using, especially if you're going to use them topically or on the skin. They must be diluted. Some oils are known skin irritants. Some are relatively safe. I'll mention a little bit about that shortly. But the dilution is done through what is termed carrier oils, which are not in and of themselves necessarily inert, because some of the carrier oils also have attributes and functions that can act synergistically with essential oils. So they also have their own properties, but they are generally seed, fruit, and vegetable oils, which are used for dilution, lubrication, and to help the essential oil absorption by the skin. Okay, many carrier oils also add nutrients to the blends and have milder properties that can complement. So, some of the common and easily accessible carrier oils for home use. If you are looking to use essential oils yourself at home, olive oil is a great one. Organic, preferably. Um, yeah, preferably because you don't really want it adulterated with other vegetable oils. But yeah, olive oil is actually a great one. It's easy to access and it enhances skin healing. Coconut oil is another brilliant one, and it's been gaining a lot of popularity. That tends to exist at room temperature, slightly cooler temperatures as a solid. So, what you can get, and this is one of the ones that I've been using, is fractionated coconut oil. What it does, what the fractionation does, is it takes out some of the heavier waxes. It's solid because there are waxes in coconut oil. So it takes out some of the waxes so that it is liquid. And in liquid form, so it becomes much easier to use. You don't have to warm it up before using it. But it's also really good. It doesn't compromise the quality of the fractionated coconut oil. And coconut oil, along with jojoba oil, are two of the ones that have a very long shelf life. So they don't spoil very easily. So it's actually a wonderful one to use and it enhances skin healing. Grapeseed oil, good for deep hydration and is relatively easily absorbed. When I do the Antonia treatments or body work using essential oils, I tend to use grapeseed as a carrier, it's just really lovely. It's thin, it's not too viscous. Avocado oil is also good. You will have seen lots of skincare products and face care products that would be infused with avocado oil because it contains natural vitamin E, lots of minerals, and it has lots of other vitamins and nourishment in avocado oil. And it's also relatively easily absorbed. Sweet almond oil, avocado oil, cold pressed avocado oil does tend to be a little bit more expensive. So if you're looking for the economy ones, you're looking at things like olive oil and fractionated coconut oil. Jojoba is not overly expensive and it's a beautiful oil to use. Sweet almond is one that's often favored by massage therapists. So it's very good to use when skin is dry or inflamed. So you can add essential oils to that. And jojoba oil is good for when skin is also good for when skin is dry or inflamed. Technically, jojoba oil is classed as a carrier oil. It's technically more of a wax. Um, so yeah, but it is viewed as and used as a carrier oil. It's really, really good for skin, for hair. It actually has a composition which is very similar to the sebum in your skin, which is why it's one of the ones that is favored for skincare use as well. So yeah, there's lots of different ones you can use. This is as a starter, relatively inexpensive. You start getting into things like camellia and rosehip oil, which is more expensive, beautiful carrier oils. But basically, all you need to know to get started is you can actually get along quite well with the carrier oils that are actually mentioned here. Purity marketing and adulteration. It's really interesting. This was something that I actually found out in the essential oil world. True purity means that an oil is 100% derived from a single botanical plant species. The oil is 100% unadulterated and is in its most magical, powerful, and potent form. So, what's really interesting is that there was a marketing initiative some years ago, and there are many brands of essential oils that use the term therapeutic grade as if to demarcate that it is pure. It is not necessarily because there is actually no such thing as therapeutic grade. There is no body, there is no managing body that determines whether something is therapeutic grade or not. But it became a very, very powerful marketing tool because if somebody's looking and they see that it says therapeutic grade, generally they will actually go for it. So, therapeutic grade does not necessarily infer purity. You can also find that you have perhaps more than one species of a plant that is actually used in a particular essential oil. So I think it's lavandula, which often uses combinations of different lavenders. You will also find, for instance, that essential oils from plants that have been grown in different geographical regions will have slightly different aromatic components, so they will smell different. French lavender smells different to Bulgarian lavender, smells different to English lavender. Although their effects are actually very similar, there is a difference in the aromatic compounds. So French lavender is just to me, it's like really, really beautiful. Has a very powerful, strong, medicinal, beautiful lavender smell, and it is different to English lavender. So not all essential oils are pure in the conventional sense. A so-called pure essential oil can be obtained from a variety of inferior plant species, or it can be distilled incorrectly. So it may be distilled along with a couple of weeds that were picked up if the plant hasn't been harvested properly, or the correct temperatures for distilling it weren't used. So you get fractions of aromatic compounds through the distillation that don't match or don't measure up to the full spectrum of components of a typically pure essential oil. They can also contain contaminants, solvents, herbicides, and pesticides, unlabeled species or plant sources, and synthetic compounds. After distillation, these unwanted components are very often only magnified. It's very, very difficult to tell, to be honest. And one of the big things that's being used at the moment is nature identical bio components that are nature identical but are synthetically produced. So, because we can now analyze scientifically everything that's in an essential oil, they're not able to do it with everything, but they can then dilute an essential oil with a synthetically produced component. So, yeah, there's lots that can actually happen with essential oil production, and yet they would still end up being labeled as pure. Most essential oils, just by the way, the most common form of extracting them is steam distillation. Some are extracted by solvents, particularly some of the waxy fractions of rose, for instance. And prices vary dramatically because a lot depends on the yield of a particular oil. So you would need so many pounds of, orange blossom flowers to produce neroli oil, and you need like 100 times more of the flowers of rose or the petals of rose to produce a rose essential oil, which is why the prices across essential oils actually do vary quite substantially. So that's really what I've just said about adulterated essential oils. You can still get results, but you may also be exposed to some harmful contaminants, such as carcinogens and hormone disruptors, because there are so many hormone disruptors in our environment at the moment. It is estimated, just as a general thing, that 70% of the essential oils on the market are not necessarily pure or are adulterated in some way. Different classifications of essential oils based on scent families. You have lots of different families of essential oils, and you get an indication of it just by even sniffing them. You've got anisic, for instance, the aniseed, so you know what that actually smells like. Star anise and aniseed, angelica, I think it's an angelica root that also has that familiar anisey smell. What's known as balsamic, which is calming and soothing, balmy, BALM, as in a balm. Benzoin and vanilla are very balsamic. For instance, those are examples. Camphorous, e.g., camphor and rosemary. Camphorous ones actually have a beautiful effect on the respiratory and very often the circulatory systems. Cineolic, as in Cajeput and Nioli, those come from the tea tree family. Citrus speaks for itself, orange and lemon. Coniferous, which is cypress and pine, as examples. Earthy or rooty, you've got vetiver and carrot seed, very earthy, very grounded smells, and they are beautiful for grounding after meditation, or if you've sort of been spacing out a little bit. Really, really good for that kind of thing. Florals, lavender, rose, neroli, straightforward. Fruity, German chamomile and citrus, because those are extracts from the fruiting bodies of those particular plants. Green, as in geranium. So that's interesting because we would probably think of geranium as being floral, but it does have a green element to it, or it's classified as green. Herbaceous, herbs, basil and bay leaf. Medicinal, such as tea tree. Some of them can actually have cross familial associations as well. Just to put that into perspective. Minty, I think that speaks for itself. Mossy, for example, oak moss. I think that's a lichen extract. It's a moss that actually grows on trees. Peppery, black pepper and cubeb. The peppery ones are also known as hot oils, as are the spicy oils, clove and nutmeg. So hot oils have their own particular precautions. Resinous, mentioned earlier, frankincense and myrrh are extracted from and derived from resins. And then you've got the woody ones. So cedar wood and rosewood are two examples where the oils themselves are extracted from the barks and from the wood of particular trees and plants. So that's sort of a general indication of the scent families of essential oils. So such a variation and such a wide variety, even within those classifications, a wide variety of scents and fragrances and compositions. Toxicity and safety hazards. These are some precautions to always be aware of with essential oils. The first one, which is maybe not as well known as it should be, and that is phototoxicity, which is some essential oils can increase the photosensitivity of your skin. For example, chemicals in the citrus family. They are notable for phototoxic effects. When it is left on the skin, bergaptan was one of the components, and then exposed to the sun, it can amplify the effect of the more damaging UV rays, potentially causing sunburn and leading to sunspots. Some people like to avoid using any citrus or bergaptan heavy oils topically altogether, but simply avoiding the sun after use or using those particular oils at night is adequate or sufficient, so as long as it's not directly before you go out into the sun. A lot of the citrus oils are cold pressed, but if they are steam distilled citrus oils, they might have lower concentrations of this bergaptan and mitigate the effect. But for the most part, they are cold pressed, so it's best to err on the side of caution. Common phototoxic oils, so you will have this slide in the presentation if you want to review it in the recording. Angelica root, bergamot, cumin is also one. Grapefruit, lemon, lime, bitter orange, rue, bergamot, lemon, lime, mandarins, all your citruses here, yuzu, and again rue. So great care. You don't have to avoid them altogether. You just need to be able to use them with caution and with that awareness. Now, there are other hazards to be aware of. So this is a brief rundown as well of oils that may cause skin irritation if they are not effectively diluted. And that's diluted in a carrier oil. Or you just drop them into a bath where you end up with micro droplets that come into direct contact with your skin. So even before using essential oils in a bath, if you want to bathe in it, it is recommended or suggested that you dilute the essential oil into a carrier oil. So that helps to disperse it so you don't get the micro droplets, and then allow that to pour that into the bathtub, and it would actually distribute and disperse. All of your generally your peppers, black pepper, cassia, cinnamon and cinnamon bark, clove, all of your sort of spicy oils, oregano, hyssop, spearmint, and peppermint, and wintergreen. All of those can actually be an irritant, skin irritant if it's not properly diluted. Thyme, allspice, bay laurel, parsley, sage. Oh, sorry, I've mentioned thyme twice. But so there's just a basic rundown of the oils that can actually irritate the skin and cause problems. So it's best to use these at low dilution rates, even with carrier oils. Start off with 1% dilution and check the sensitivity of your particular skin. Um, so dilution, sorry, did I actually repeat that slide? Yeah, I did. Sorry. I don't know why. Um, as a general guideline, there are other contraindications as far as essential oils are concerned, but there are too many to actually point out in this particular presentation. I do have a little bit on pregnancy just coming up shortly, because that is something that one actually needs to be aware of. But as a general rule, in terms of diluting essential oils, here is a little chart with a guideline for usage. So generally, vulnerable individuals or adults, elderly adults and children. Children here, you can see you would go up to a maximum of a 2% dilution. It is safer to start off with the lowest dilution at around 0.5%. That is equal to 1 drop in 10 mils. So here it tells you what that dilution ratio works out to. So always start off with the lowest dilution, you can work up from there. 1 to 5 years, you can then work on a 2 to 5% dilution, so that in 10 mils, it's 6 drops of any single essential oil or a blend of essential oils, from 6 up to 15 drops in 10 mils. So if you wanted to do it in a 30 ml bottle, you just scale it up so you can work it out appropriately. And adults 6 to 11 years, you can work up to a 25% dilution with certain products. You would not do this with something like peppermint. So always be careful with those skin irritants. You would not use the high dilution ratios with something like that, with the irritants. You can go up to a 50% dilution with some of the oils that are relatively safe, and safer things like lavender and frankincense, which is really great. Myrrh is quite a safe one. Myrtle is quite a safe one. But yeah. So this is your general guideline. But if you're working with the elderly or you're working with children, stick to a 0.5 to 1% generally, because they're also more sensitive to the oils. Different ways of using them. You can inhale the aromas through the use of steam inhalation or aromatherapy inhalers and electric diffusers. Interestingly, you can, what's the word, sort of saturate your body, if you like, with the impacts of the essential oil within a space of 45 to 60 minutes. So anything after that actually becomes redundant. So if you're using an electric diffuser, such as the one shown in the image, no longer than 45 to 60 minutes of a specific blend. You can simply also open the bottle and just breathe in the aroma. But that's really great to do if you've got blocked nose, blocked sinuses, or what have you, and using peppermints or eucalyptus or pine, just actually breathe it in from the bottle. It helps to actually clear the airways, for instance. That's an example. And infuse candles. The one thing you need to be careful of With diffusing essential oils is don't use them on a direct heat source. And I remember many years ago there were these clay rings that were all the rage, where you could put it on top of a light bulb and put essential oils on the light bulb. What that actually does is it burns the essential oil technically, and that can change the chemical composition, and it could end up diffusing more toxic variations of those components into the air around you. So be careful about essential oils on a direct heat source because you don't want to burn them. Topical application is another way of using, so mix with a carrier oil, or in cream salves and lotions and skincare products, in massage, in foot baths, and full bath immersion. So all of those will get the essential oil into contact with your skin. So those are all of the options there, different ways of using them there. You can use them very effectively as cleaning products for your home and for deodorizing. Use it as a laundry rinse. You can deodorize smelly shoes. I've got a lovely recipe for that coming up shortly. Cleaning grout and tile, air and carpet freshener, etc. You can use some of the food um, essential oils, such as your herbs and your spices, in culinary applications. So things like your basil, your clove, and some of those you can actually use in herbs and spices in foods, and ingestion. Now, unless you know absolutely that the source of the oil is monitored, managed, tested, and 100% pure, I would suggest being very cautious about the ingestion element or aspect of essential oils. Here's an example in this little picture here of an all-purpose cleaner. So you can use three essential oils, rosemary, citrus, and cedarwood, mixed up in a 500 ml bottle, which becomes a really powerful cleaner for your home. And I've got a lovely deodorizer coming up shortly. They're very, very easy to use. So you can essentially detoxify your home while you're detoxifying your own personal space. Essential oils and pregnancy. There are some absolute no-nos in terms of using essential oils when pregnant, because of the impact that many of these oils might have on the level of hormones and the balance of hormones. And some of the oils may cause uterine contractions, or miscarriage, especially during the first trimester. So, or have an adverse effect on the fetus. So this is a list for you. You don't have to write it down now, of oils to absolutely avoid during pregnancy. Some doctors will say never use essential oils when pregnant. However, there are some very valuable applications and some safe essential oils that can be used when pregnant. It's just if you are dealing with or recommending to somebody who is pregnant, avoid these particular oils. Um, so those are known toxic. Essential oils in pregnancy to relieve nausea. You can safely use lavender, chamomile. I would be cautious about peppermint. You can maybe add 1 drop, but peppermint at very, very low dilutions, because peppermint is a great essential oil for digestive issues. So peppermint and ginger, sniff them directly from the bottle, or sniff a cotton ball or tissue that's treated with a drop or two. They ease belly upset and are good essential oils for morning sickness. To soothe muscle aches, and this is a general one too, these are safe for pregnancy. Lavender, ylang ylang, ginger, chamomile, and frankincense. Add a total of 12 drops of essential oil to 2 tablespoons of a base oil and massage into the affected areas. Treating hemorrhoids, there you've got a recommendation as well, which said this can soothe the swelling and the irritation. So it acts as anti-inflammatory. Cypress, geranium, and lavender. Blend together all three and add to 2 tablespoons of aloe vera gel. And improving sleep. Lavender, ylang ylang, and mandarin. 12 drops to 2 tablespoons of distilled water in a spray mist bottle and mist the pillows before bed. Or you can actually do it at 12 drops into 2 tablespoons of carrier oil into a little bottle or into a 10 ml. A tablespoon, 1 tablespoon is approximately 10 ml. So you could do it into a 10 ml roller bottle and actually roll it on the temples as well, because those oils are relatively safe. Talking about sleep, which is really interesting, is how many of you suffer with insomnia, and what is the first oil that you might think of for supporting or assisting insomnia? I would hazard a guess. Um, I don't know if any of you are in the chat room, but I would hazard a guess that for most of you, the oil that you would most likely go for would be lavender, because that's the most commonly known and used one. What I have since found out, and I use it now to very, very positive and powerful effect, is that mandarin essential oil, you would think mandarin citrusy, fresh, uplifting. It actually has sedative components to it. So mandarin and marjoram oil, which is a sweet herb, but combination of mandarin and marjoram, you can add a little bit of lavender to it as well, has beautiful sedating effects. And marjoram itself, so they help you to calm down and to sleep, but marjoram helps you to stay asleep. Most importantly, it relaxes the muscles and actually helps you to stay asleep. So it helps you to ease anxiety. So there's a lot of additional benefit that can be had by mixing different essential oils. Essential oils and pets, some things to be aware of is that high quality essential oils can be very beneficial for animals, emotionally as well as physical. Um, the they The interesting thing about essential oils, and this is for animals as well as for humans, is that because no two plants are the same, essential oils are less likely to result in bacterial resistance, unlike synthetic allopathic medications. So they can have very, very powerful antibacterial effects for both us and animals. There are, as always, some precautions that one needs to be aware of in respect of using essential oils with different groups of animals. So I just want to point these out for you. Birds can be very sensitive, small body, highly sensitive to oils. So it's recommended to only use a water diffusion. That's kind of one of those steam diffusers around birds, and not to apply essential oils directly to the bird. Cats also, there are precautions with cats because cats are lacking an enzyme in their liver which would enable them to metabolize or process some of the components of essential oils, among other toxins. So they are susceptible to many, many types of toxicity. So you would want to avoid the following oils if they're likely to get dispersed droplets on their coats. And I think about cats as well because they preen. So if you've sprayed something on the carpet, and they are likely to lie on the carpet, they may just get that oil into their coat, and when they're preening, they're going to ingest droplets of that oil. So one needs to be very aware of this with cats. If it is water dispersed or diffused, generally quite safe, and there are some safe oils. But you want to avoid any oils that are high in phenols or ketones as far as direct application. So here's the list for you: basil, birch, cinnamon, clove, fennel, melaleuca, that's tea tree, nutmeg, oregano, and the mints, the peppermints around cats. And then anything that contains the limonene, which are these specific citruses. So be careful of those around cats. I'll leave that because you can take it from the slide again later. What the oils that are well tolerated for cats that can be extremely supportive are lavender, myrrh, frankincense, helichrysum, Roman chamomile, and geranium. Use very low dilutions, the same as you would for children, which is 1 drop per 2 teaspoons of carrier, or 1 drop per 10 mil. So that's your indication of what is safe for use around cats. Dogs can tolerate them pretty well, but it's still safe to avoid the camphor and the medicinal oils. As a general rule, the smaller the animal, the more dilute the blend you want to be using. And here are some helpful ideas for dogs, as you can use generally, whereas cats you're looking at a 0.5%. With dogs, you can use a sort of a 1% blend, 2% absolute maximum generally with dogs, but you can use sort of double the dilution with dogs. So you can ease anxiety with lavender and vetiver. Also quite interesting, you can also diffuse frankincense, and we've used that a few times at home, and it does seem to have a calming effect with animals. Ear infections, apply a diluted blend of lavender and frankincense with geranium and basil to the base of the ear, not ever in the ears of animals, but at the base of the ear externally after cleaning, would be absorbed through the skin. Skin allergies, and Marilyn, I know you may be interested in this, a diluted blend of frankincense, lemon, and lavender, topically 3 times daily. So you would dilute appropriately those three essential oils and apply to the affected area, and it's really good for skin calming. There is a wonderful ebook if anybody is interested in more of the detail for animals and using essential oils for animals, and it's called Spoil Your Pets. It is on Kindle and it is on Amazon. So we've got it's SP Spoil Your Pets. So the worth, oh, it didn't type the cats that I actually had in there. But yeah, if you look for that book on Amazon, it's a very, very useful one to have if you have animals and you want to know how you can support them. Special considerations and contraindications for all pets. This actually applies also to humans, so one would need to be aware of these as contraindications. Any seizure disorders. Some oils are thought to lower the seizure threshold, so things like epilepsy and any other kinds of intermittent seizures. Avoid all oils that contain or include basil, black pepper, camphor, eucalyptus, fennel, hyssop, sage, rosemary, and wintergreen. So there's your list of avoid them. If there is a bleeding disorder, animals with any bleeding disorders, and they're being treated with an anticoagulant or have difficulty clotting, avoid topical applications of anything that actually may impact the circulation or the flow of blood. And the pregnancy caution is exactly the same as for humans because of the impact on hormones. So here you go. Any hot oils, those are the spices. Spicy oils, make sure they're very, very well diluted, or to be on the safe side, possibly avoid them. There's your list. Okay, so here for humans, some ideas for you, some practical hints of blends that you can actually use for specific ailments. As mentioned in the beginning, the applications for essential oils are numerous, and they do span a vast spectrum of applications. So for allergies, lavender, lemon, and peppermint. Insomnia, mandarin. Melissa is another one that's really good. Melissa is essentially lemon balm and marjoram, or lavender, orange, and marjoram. Really useful for insomnia. For healthy digestion, anise, caraway, fennel, ginger, and lemon. You can actually apply it topically over your stomach and over the digestive area. Mental focus, really good. I actually used to do this sort of back in the day when I used to party a lot, and that goes back many, many years, that if I'd had a really late night the night before, I would actually use some of the mental focus oils included, and I would also include rosemary in with that lot as well. And basil is another one that gives you a zing and a mental lift. But cedarwood, frankincense, sandalwood, and vetiver, great for mental focus. I would always use them sort of the morning after and help get me through the day. Immune boosting, you can actually diffuse these into your environment. Cinnamon, clove, eucalyptus, rosemary, orange, and lemon. And you can mix them in different ways. You can use one, you can use three, depending on what kind of fragrance or what kind of smells you enjoy. So these are just ideas. Depression, anything citrus has an immediate uplift. And vanilla also, because it's calming and soothing and it sort of makes you feel all warm and balmy. So there's your ideas and recommendations for depression. Deep breathing, if you have a cold, eucalyptus, lemon, peppermint, rosemary, tea tree, and myrtle. Myrtle is a great one. I want to mention this here for children, especially. So some of the other things like your peppermint may be too strong for children with breathing. In fact, it's interesting because my housemate's nephew suffers with asthma and allergies that affect his respiratory system. And one of the most recent ones we've got him onto for sniffing is myrtle. And he really, really enjoys it. He started off just with lavender and he's now on myrtle. And he says it's really helping him. So myrtle is excellent for children if they've got colds. It's much gentler than some of the others. Others for insomnia include Roman chamomile, lavender, vetiver, and vetiver. They're also very soothing. They immediately sort of relax the body. Pain relief or analgesic, basil, frankincense, marjoram, cypress, and peppermint. Really good. Anxiety, lavender, sweet orange, and vanilla. Bruising, helichrysum is great for that. In fact, helichrysum is brilliant for wound healing in general. And I would say that of all of the essential oils, that helichrysum and lavender, you are pretty safe applying those oils neat. Lavender, it is known that you can apply lavender essential oil neat to the skin. Brilliant for burns, absolutely brilliant for burns. And that I've used many times, sort of catching my finger on the stove or the gas ring or whatever it might be, lavender straight on, and it basically heals it literally within and overnight. Helichrysum as well is brilliant for wound healing, and I do tend to apply that neat. In fact, those two are probably really vital in any first aid kit. So helichrysum, great all-round essential oil for many different things. Insect repellents, there you've got some suggestions there. You can diffuse into the room, you can burn candles. You can actually use also making up a diluted oil and apply it to your body if you know that you're going to be somewhere where there's a lot of midges or mosquitoes or insects, or you're going out walking in the woods kind of thing. So you would just want to let go of, perhaps not use the lemon or the citronella because of the phototoxicity if you're going to be out in the sun. But there's some great combinations there that you can actually then dilute and apply to the skin. And also you can work with spray them around, put them into a spray and spray your home. So it said that we've used natural cedarwood for fleas. So there you go. So what I've also got is a natural deodorizer. This is a brilliant combination. It's an excellent formulation for neutralizing odors in the home. That's another element and aspect with the natural deodorizers. Myrtle again is in this blend because myrtle has a natural deodorizing aspect to it. You can use it for your own homemade deodorants if that's what you want. But as an air freshener, you can actually use it to neutralize odors from smelly shoes. You can like put a couple of drops onto a cotton pad and put it in the shoes. You can deodorize washing machines, pet smells, smoke, rubbish bins, fabrics, etc. Make up a stock blend. This is what I have done. I made up a 30 ml stock blend of these oils in these proportions. So there's your percentages. Those are the milliliters per 30. So I made up a 30 ml of stock blend, and then you just take a 500 ml spray bottle, like one of these with a trigger top. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, with a trigger top. Um, Take 5 ml of your stock, mix it with 2 tablespoons of vodka. You fill up your bottle with water first, mix your oil with the vodka, and then you add that to the water. It'll probably go cloudy, but that's okay. The vodka or the alcohol helps to disperse the essential oil in a water-based blend. And then you can spray it all over the place. You can spray your shoes, you can spray the atmosphere, spray the environment. And then you can use the stock blend as well, as I say, for putting cotton pads into closets or into smelly shoes or whatever it might be, or into your washing machine. So really, really useful natural deodorizer blend, very practical. An essential oil first aid kit is really valuable to actually have on hand. They offer a beautiful natural alternative to traditional first aid methods and provide several distinct benefits. One of the main reasons that they're excellent for first aid is because they are antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, and antiseptic. They can boost immunity, they can heal infections more quickly than many other treatments, lavender being one of them. They can assist with skin irritations and pain relief from wounds or bug bites, stimulate circulation, reduce inflammation, heal bruises. Lavender and helichrysum, you want to add helichrysum there, offer powerful aromatherapy benefits that lessen stress. So it must also be noted um, that essential oils themselves should not replace traditional medical treatments for serious injuries. You're not going to mend a broken bone with essential oils, and there are certain things that you're not going to be able to do with essential oils, but they are a wonderful reach for product as a first aid practice. So it shouldn't substitute for professional care, but they are a wonderful product for minor injuries and very useful to have on hand for natural. So what I did was I sort of went through and I pulled together 12 essential oils that would make up a really great essential oil first aid kit, including lavender, pain, stress, skin issues, insomnia, etc. Peppermint, which cools, peppermint's both cooling and warming, but it's also good for aches and pains. It's great for headache, mental alertness, and for breathing. So it has many applications. Lemon is an all-rounder. It's great for cleaning and cleansing, as long as it's diluted. Always remember, great for jet lag, throat ailments, and circulation. Frankincense, which is good for sinus congestion. Many applications for frankincense. This is also just top level, good for nervous tension. Sweet orange, eucalyptus, clove, helichrysum. Clove's really good for toothache, abdominal pain. Believe it or not, warts. Clove is one of the most powerful antifungal agents. So for things like ringworm, it's actually very, very useful. Lemongrass is an analgesic. Myrrh is great for circulation, also eases trauma and grief, as along with frankincense. So it's interesting that frankincense and myrrh were grouped together in that biblical passage because the two do work beautifully synergistically together. So also very good for releasing negative emotions, and anywhere that you've been holding onto stuff. So really good for trauma. Oregano is good for digestive disorders, also very powerful for fighting infection, stimulating your immune system, for joint health and for depression. And myrtle is great for congestion, for gum health. So you can put a drop in water and use it as a mouthwash, for instance. And it's softer than tea tree. I know that many of you would be familiar with tea tree. It's softer than tea tree in that respect. It's also can act as a sedative, so you can use it in anti-insomnia blends or just to calm down. It's anti-allergenic and it's a decongestant. It's just a beautiful all-round product as well is myrtle. And I'd never even thought about that until I actually got the essential oils that I've got and started exploring and investigating. So those are 12 essential oils that I would actually recommend and suggest for a first aid kit. What I have is I've actually got a curated set, as in a first aid kit in a lovely little sturdy carry bag with the 12 essential oils, with a blend of fractionated coconut oil and jojoba mixed, already pre-mixed, with roller bottles so that you can make up your own combinations for whatever you want, with labels and with a handy little gadget to take the tops off the rollers and the essential oil bottles, plastic pipettes, and a funnel. So you get a lovely little kit with all of those 12 essential oils, which have a multitude of uses. And that value is just, it's way over £90 for the value of the essential oils, because something like helichrysum tends to be quite expensive, frankincense tends to be an expensive oil, myrtle I don't think is one of the cheapest, but group them all together in the kit. I'm actually selling those until Monday the 12th for £45 for the whole kit. So that includes the case, it includes all of the ancillaries. So it just really is an excellent value little first aid kit of good quality oil. So I just wanted to share that with you. You can have a look if you go to my website. Sorry, I just want to go back. There, if you go to my website, there's a new section called Essential Oils. And there's a whole lot of products listed under there. Now, what I wanted to share with you just very briefly is to give you some background of where and why I've gotten so involved with essential oils. I've always loved and always worked with essential oils. I have done for like the last 25 years, at least. Always loved them. I've used them for the Diamond Light work, for the Diamond Light sprays, where I actually charge up the products, and I've just made up actually some roller bottles to go along with all of the Diamond Light products as well. That's more from an aromatic, spiritual support or energetic support perspective. What I found with these in early December last year, one of the things that I actually do is I scout the auctions from time to time for products that I then actually sell on eBay. And it was just one of those moments, divinely guided, that's all I can say, where I was divinely guided to look at a specific auction site that I hadn't looked at for a while. And I've never, ever looked at palletized products. And on this particular website, they had just, it was a Thursday evening, they had just loaded up a listing for liquidated stock of essential oils. And it was a pallet. And I didn't realize at the time, but there are 83 different types of essential oils in this liquidated stock. So the list of essential oils, if you go onto my website as well, I've got downloads in the full set. If you look at the full set, you can download the full list. And you can, if you wanted to buy individual oils, you can. And I actually bid on it. The auction was closing the following day, and they were just because it was a late listing, nobody had actually seen it. There were very few people, and I actually managed to achieve against sort of very few bidders this lot of essential oils. And I did not know at the time what the quality would be like. I just took a chance. That was it. So the brand is Sable Noir. If you had to actually Google them, you'll see that the actual brand name was only registered in 2022. I think it was 2022 or beginning of 2023. So that's where I actually got to when I actually found the brand name, as it was at a relatively recent listing. It's a company called, because the bottles themselves actually have an website address listed as zamaz.co.uk. The company no longer exists. What I found out was that the company Zamaz was an eco-orientated brand whose best-selling product was called Eco Moist. So they were obviously looking at essential oils to complement their eco branded products and their eco image. So they had set up a whole lot of listings on Amazon, which is where I actually saw them, but there were no sales and no reviews on Amazon. When I actually went into and looked at the company, they were listed on the stock exchange in 2023. They then merged with another company and dropped the name, took the name of the new company, which is Dis, Dispenza, I think it is, Dispenza, which is an Italian company. And obviously then dropped working with the essential oils because the focus became on the original products of the dispenser company, which was food products. So I did a lot of investigation, a lot of checking around to find out what the source of these particular products was, because buying them in auction, you're just not sure. So I found out the information about the company, and they eventually were Zamaz, as I say, no longer exists. So everything that's on the labels in terms of the Zamaz listing is inappropriate. You won't find anything. But what I did manage to find out through the investigation was I managed to get in touch with the original distillers and suppliers of the oils. They were very reluctant to give me too much information because I am not affiliated with the original company. So what they did confirm for me is that the oils are pure. A number of them are organic, those that are actually on the list and that are listed as organic are certified organic. So I think the peppermint is organic, but they're not labeled. The little oils, they're not labeled as organic, but I've got their certificate, which actually indicates they are. So I've put that and transferred that across to the list. So they are pure essential oils. They were distilled, and as they said to me, they are in date. So it had obviously, like I said, it was a failure to launch, and I think I mentioned this. It's easier to try and explain it verbally than it is trying to write it all down. So Zamaz as a company merged with Dispenza, dropped their focus on the essential oils, and all of their stock went to auction. So I've actually got 83 amazing pure essential oils under the Sable Noir brand at the moment. I can supply full sets of the 83 different oils. There are some amazing oils in the sets as well. We've spoken today about some of the more common ones that you'd be familiar with, your lavenders, your lemons, your citruses, they all there. The one I don't have is tea tree. But I discovered as well that Niuli is a great substitute for tea tree, which is in the kit. So I have all 83. There are some beautiful Ayurvedic oils which are not very well known, things like Chalmogra, betel leaf, some cubeb, some really unusual, not very commonly known oils. So I've spent time putting together a list of the general attributes of all of the oils that are actually in the set. You can download that as well. It's listed, it's there with the price list on the website. So if you wanted to buy individual essential oils, you can do that. So that's there. So I have individual oil purchases, which is would be via the list, because I have not listed every single individual oil on the website yet. I probably won't. So I'll probably just do that from the list. But what I do have is curated six packs. So I've actually got, for instance, the six oils that I use in the Odor Eater blend. That's in its own little six pack. You can make your own six pack. You can ask me for a six pack, and I can do that for you, or a 12 pack, or whatever it is that you would like. So I can do that for you as well. What I have also got is I have been blending essential oils for specific conditions and purposes. Things like a general analgesic that would be relatively well tolerated across, blends for insomnia. So if you didn't want to get involved in your own blending, I have concentrated blends and I have rollerball blends of for specific conditions. So we got analgesics, I've got a blend for dealing with grief that's been very well received as well. As one or two people who've actually used that recently to great effect. So I've got a grief blend. It's been a lot of work getting to this particular stage with them, but the essential oils are really lovely. I actually have an aromatherapist who's bought a full set in the UK. Um, and as she said, when she went through them, she says the German chamomile is really expensive. Generally, it's in the kit. German chamomile, spot on. Um, there were a couple of the others that she was particularly because they are challenging and they're the ones most likely to be adulterated or doctored because they're more expensive essential oils. Either French lavender, I think it was, like spot on. You can actually tell the difference. So there were a number of them. So yes, they are good quality, pure, essential oils, and they are absolutely beautiful. The other thing that I can do is that if you have specific conditions that you want a blend for, and you don't want to be blending yourselves, you can also ask, and I will actually make up a particular blend for you. So I will pass that over to you and open up if any of you actually have any questions at all. I hope you enjoyed that as a general introduction and that there is some good practical insight and information that you can take away and actually start working with yourself. So the chat room is there. I'm going to keep my eye open on that. If you guys have any other questions at the moment, or did you find that sort of useful? And I'm glad the echoing actually wasn't interfering too much with the presentation. So thankfully that actually stayed all aligned for the time. Would you guys be more comfortable if you wanted to vocalize anything, or are you guys happy, or is there a lot for you to absorb?
There's a
Yes or
lot to
no?
absorb, Julie, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's been really, really interesting and very informative. So know a lot more now than I did at the start of the session. So thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. Yeah, that was my intention, was to provide you with enough information to be able to work with them safely and with awareness. You know, there are so many resources as well on the internet. So if you did want to sort of check on, thank you, Michelle, if you did want to check on the associations, I've got a detox blend, which is also great for cellulite. I just thought I'd throw that one in, which I'm personally using at the moment. And it really is. It certainly had me getting up in the middle of the night. I made the mistake of using it when I went to bed. And it had me getting up more frequently during the night, so I can tell you that that one works. Yeah, so there's blends and applications for so many purposes, but you have a lot that you can work with. So unless there are any more questions at all or any other comments, I'm going to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Pam. Brilliant information. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Um, and yeah, thank you for being here. And don't forget that the first aid kits, they are only at the special price until the 12th. And I've held them there because I'm doing an in-person workshop and presentation on the 12th when I will actually have those kits with me, the first aid kits. And once those are gone, they're gone, and the price will actually go up. But essentially, for £45 for 12 essential oils, plus the box, plus the carrier, plus the bottles, etc., etc., you're coming in at less than um, sort of less than £4 a bottle for some really lovely essential oils. So I hope you guys will enjoy that. Have a look, do feel free to send me through any questions at julie@resonate.co.uk. And thanks again for being here. I'll get the recording out as soon as possible. I'm going to stop the recording.